And then there was one, that one being Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services of America. So that is the only brokerage left in the Antitrust Commission lawsuit that has been going on since, well, beyond last year, but last year was when it got adjudicated, when it went to trial. Just a little quick recap as we get into this, because the latest from this particular case is that Home Services of America has petitioned for the Supreme Court to step in and hopefully get them off the hook, right? So have the Supreme Court, which it's going to be a long shot. We'll talk about what that looks like, because there's a less than 1% acceptance rate whenever somebody, there's a bringing the judgment, the lawsuit to the Supreme Court. They only hear but 100, 120, 130 court cases a year. So it's just one Supreme Court. Just one court. It's the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court of the land. So quick little recap. There's been the commission lawsuit that has been ongoing for years and years, and it formally got adjudicated. It formally went to trial last year, so towards the end of last year. Now, originally there was NAR, so National Association of Realtors, was implicated. RE/MAX was also in it. Keller Williams was also in it. Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services was also in it. And I forget exactly the fifth player in the space. It's going to come to me as we get going. But Realogy, formerly known Realogy, is Anywhere. Anywhere is the fifth one. So prior to the actual trial, so these 5 entities were named in the initial suit. This is a class action lawsuit. There in Missouri, the was where the court adjudicated, or the trial was had. Prior to the trial, there's 2 entities that resolved their issues, or essentially they paid, so they settled. It was Anywhere and it was RE/MAX. I think Anywhere paid about, I was about to make a joke, Anywhere close to, no, Anywhere, I think Anywhere paid roughly a little bit over $80 million, and then RE/MAX got a little discount. They paid a little bit over $50 million. That's not a discount. So that was before it went to trial. Well, when it went to trial, you had NAR, so National Association of Realtors. You had KW, and so Keller Williams, and you had Home Services of America. Well, the trial was lost by NAR, by KW, and by Home Services. So at that point, the damages per se, what the judgment was for was $1.8 billion. So for those 3 entities, which could potentially go more once it gets determined here in a couple of months, I believe is when it's actually going to happen. I think in April. No, it seems too early. I don't really remember exactly when it's going to be found, how much it's actually going to end up being. But it could be treble the damages, so triple the amount. So that amounts to $5.4 billion. Anyway, so that now what happened just this past week, Keller Williams, they ended up They ended up settling. So now, then they settled for about $70 million. So now we get to today, where we have NAR still they're appealing the same way that Home Services is also appealing. So there's the appeal. It's going through the appeals process. So that's why I believe it's April is a little bit early. I don't believe April is actually the case. April is the when it's going to be determined how much they actually owe, because it's going through appeal right now, the appeal process. So NAR is still implicated, but excuse me, Home Services is the only brokerage left. So you have NAR, the National Association, so the Realtor Association, and then you have Home Services still left. So they're the ones left holding the bag. Home Services is the only brokerage holding the bag. So what they just recently did was they filed with the Supreme Court. I think it's called like writ cert or some, I forget, something about cert. Which essentially is when they formally request that the Supreme Court to take up the case. So here's what we pick up. So this article is courtesy of Reuters. All right, sorry. Struggling this morning. Real estate brokerage units of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway have asked the U.S. Supreme Court to unwind a consumer class action lawsuit that culminated in a $1.8 billion trial verdict against them and other real estate defendants last year. Home Services of America and two other Berkshire subsidiaries on Friday asked the judges to reject a ruling that led Missouri area home sellers joined together as a class in the case, which accused brokerages of artificially inflating commissions for home sales. We're not going to read the rest of it, but essentially, here's why they're making this claim, and we'll expand on it. Our appeal is rooted in the principles of the Federal Arbitration Act, which clearly mandates that arbitration agreements be honored as they are written, a spokesperson for Home Services said. Now, the plaintiffs haven't responded to that, but the lawsuit hinged on a real estate industry rule that required sellers to pay a commission to, well, anyway, we know about that. What Home Services is saying, hey, the home sellers agree to arbitrate, because that's in the contracts, or against any claims arising in the listing residential real estate, essentially in the contracts, right? So there's an arbitration clause that basically all real estate, at least from the association, not the association, from the commissions, they all basically have that, the arbitration instead of going to the court. So what Home Services is saying is, hey, this is something that should have been done. We shouldn't have even been implicated here. This should have gone straight into arbitration rather than getting tried in the court. And that's what they're saying here. Home Services said the appeals court erroneously decisioned to usurp the I'm struggling today. Erroneous decision to usurp the arbitrator's authority subjected Home Service to an unwarranted class trial. So again, it's the next step should have been arbitration. It shouldn't have been a class action lawsuit. Now, Home Services, before the actual trial happened, they brought this up. So they were named in the trial and everything else. So their claim and their try to get out of jail free card was, hey, this is the arbitration. Like, we should be this is not even it should not, the next step is not trial, at least for us, if you will. Now, that's what they try to do beforehand. That's how they try to get out of the lawsuit altogether at the beginning. But there was a ruling that said, no, actually, you can't even sign based off of your affiliates, because I believe there's like 3 different affiliates. You have Berkshire, Home Services, you have something about Home Services affiliates, and then something I think is like NSF or something affiliates. So essentially, it was saying you're not able to sign for that anyway. So it's even if we did grant you this, you have no authority to be bound in these agreements, which I thought that's just wild. So under that premise, if they're saying that Home Services, a parent company, is not able to sign in that respect, or it does not have that type of protection, then the entire contract is null and void, in my opinion. But I have no law degree. So anyway, what's happened right now is Home Services has requested the Supreme Court to take this on. The likelihood of this happening is very, 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 very low, less than 1%. That's the percentage that we're looking at. But even on top of that, then you're putting it on the Supreme Court to see it your way. So this is at this point, again, Home Services right now, this might seem like, for me, the way that I read it is probably the last ditch effort. The next one is probably going to be settling, or finding a way to not be the last person standing, if you will, because at this point they are the last broker standing in tandem with the association. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Supreme Court takes it on, and also if they do take it on, and their off chance that they do, what's going to be the verdict from that? So let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you think that the Supreme Court's going to take this case? Do you think that Home Services has grounds for this to happen? Do you think they should have been in the lawsuit altogether? Let me know in the comments section on what your opinion is in this particular topic, and we will see you tomorrow.